Yes, guys, welcome back to Chasing Green Arrows. We are here with your midweek special, your usual place on a Wednesday at 1 p.m. UK time. It's me, I'm today's host, joined by Big Man Backer. How you doing, mate? Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you as well, Johnny. Thanks for having me. Hello and welcome to all the listeners and viewers. It's been a good week.
Yeah?
56 points for me, I believe.
Nice.
Not bad, not bad. I mean, I was rewarded for my patience with Rashford and Fernandez, so it was good to see. It's been an all right week, and overall, it's been a decent start of the season. How about you? I hear you were raging about Sheffield United scoring last week.
It's just the whole third defender spot. Game week 1 and 2, we know what happened if you had Gabriel. Game week 3, turns out if you had Gabriel, you got really lucky with your bench points because everyone had a good first sub. Well, not me, because I decided to sell Gabriel. Fine, you might say. Sell him for a Doji or Gusto, who went and got big points, or Matty Cash. No. I sold him for a guy that lost his clean sheet in the last 5 minutes of a game, despite Sheffield United never looking like they were going to concede. Oh, and with that, meant Foden comes off the bench for Man City. He's in my 11, and therefore I don't get the bench points I was expecting from Colwell anyway. So that third defender sub, whether it's been Gabriel or not, continues to haunt. But look, cry me a river. I wouldn't be an FPL manager if I didn't think I was the world's unluckiest manager for that given game week. We all do it. But the future's looking good. I'm liking the look of my team. I'm nowhere near a wild card. Some people are talking about wild carding, Big Man. Are you surprised by that? Or, I mean, it is so team dependent, but I'm nowhere near that stage in my team.
A lot of people have actually pulled the trigger this week. I mean, I could see some merit to it. I mean, there were a lot of people who started with Gabriel, Richarlison, even Salah. I mean, a lot of Salah owners now want to distribute the funds around. A lot of people didn't have Mbumo. They sort of want him right now. A lot of people had Potman on the bench. He's injured. Baldock is leaving. People don't have any bench cover whatsoever. They want to bring in the likes of Sterling, Maddison. So, I mean, I could see some merit to it. Having said that, I don't think most teams do require a wild card. Most template teams don't. And as you've said, it's team specific. And I think it's for most teams, even if there are certain fires to put out, I think a -4, -4 will be more than enough to solve most problems that I see.
I think I'm with you on that. I've seen people tweeting saying they're wildcarding because they don't have, and let's say they've given 3 examples. One is a player that's good in the midfield. I don't know. I don't have Mbomo. And then the tweet has followed with, I don't have Mbomo, Kabore and Archer, therefore I need to wildcard. And it's like, you can't wildcard for your 4 million defender and your 4.5 million forward on your bench. Like, don't let that be a reason. I think you have to look at your team and go, I need 6 changes in my starting 11 or 5 changes in my starting 11 to justify it. I'd be I just couldn't do it for a handful of 2 or 3 players.
For sure, because I don't see enough reason for it because, I mean, when you look at the template picks, even the likes of Rashford, Fernandez, they've started performing well. I don't see the reason to even necessarily sell the likes of Mitoma or Martinelli. I mean, yes, they aren't ideal picks at the moment, but it's not as if they've become bad picks overnight, right? So it's just that people are chasing optimal picks this week.
Yeah. And there is a big question over what midfielders to accommodate. And today's stream is mostly going to be centered around midfielders. We're going to be answering some big midfielder questions and your questions in the chat as well. So do get your questions in and we'll come to them sporadically. But many, again, are looking at the wildcard because they're heavily invested in Man United and Arsenal. They might have triple United, triple Arsenal and go, these 2 teams are playing each other, therefore I want to get rid. To be honest, I look at that fixture from last season at the Emirates. I was fortunate enough to be there. There were goals. Like, don't let one fixture put you off and force you to pull the trigger because you're not going to have the optimal week every single week. Sometimes you just have to go, those two teams might cancel each other out this week. I might not get a huge return from those players. Maybe I sell one of them and you just move on. But it's the Arsenal mids and the Man United mids that I guess will focus a lot of today's discussion around because the kind of we're not buying those players. The hold or sell angle on those players, I think, is quite important this week, right?
Absolutely. And again, I think the United mids are actually a very important topic of discussion. Yeah. And like you've said, the game last time was very high scoring. At the Emirates, it was 3-2, if I recall correctly. And Arsenal, in fact, had posted very good XG numbers in that game in particular. So even though I might end up selling Martinelli this week, I'm not entirely confident because I think this is a move that can backfire this week. I really do.
I'm the same. I'll be selling Martinelli with a heavy heart, but I also think that's going to be my transfer out. Let's have a look at your team later in the show. But let's have say hello to a few in the chat. Brian's joined, Smith's joined, Andrew, Toby, Benedict. Good to see so many new faces in the chat. Big Man is definitely bringing a slightly new audience to the CGA team. Guys, if you're regulars, we refer to you as chasers, so get used to that term. Chasers in the chat. We also have some lurkers we've established in the last few weeks in the chat. So if you are a lurker and not that active in the chat, that's cool. But if you fancy popping a question in or saying hello, then please do. Obviously, hit the like button if you can, guys. And if you're new around here, subscribe. We are super close to 6,000 subs. We'd love to reach that in today's show. I think that is very, very possible. We're 5.99. So, yeah, do hit that subscribe button if you can. And let's crack on with a couple of questions. What we got starting up? Let's have a look. Burning question number 1. Who's the best pick? Maddison, Sterling, or Foden? I'm not going to sit on the fence on this, and I don't think you probably are either, big man. Proof might be in the pudding based on our transfers this week. But let's have a look at some of the numbers. I think we're comparing just their game week 3 in this next graphic, which you could argue isn't too fair. It may have been better to compare 1, 2, and 3, but I think this is also fine because look, we know what we got from Sterling in game week 1 and 2. We got blanked. We know Maddison's ticked along nicely, and we know Foden's had one good and one bad week. But if we just look at their game week 3 and their threat, and again, Foden minutes, we can't look too much into because he was on the pitch for a couple of minutes. And in that time, still 9 passes, all accurate. What do we think, big man? Because Sterling had a worldy week, but even when you look at the data, 73 minutes of Maddison, in terms of underlying numbers and expected, he still beat him.
Again, I think this is the biggest question of the week. Maddison, Foden, Sterling. I'd even add Mbomo to this. I think that's another big debate for a lot of people who didn't go with him because a lot of people seem to be in the market for a midfielder this week. My take on this is that I personally think that all 3 of them are very explosive, and all 3 of them have very good fixtures to come. I personally like Maddison and Sterling more than Foden because of the fact that City have Champions League coming into play after Game Week 5. So, in fact, even in Game Week 5, we could see reduced minutes to the likes of Foden, early subs, and stuff like that. So, even though when you look at him, he sort of does have on paper the highest ceiling, probably because he's the City. Mid City tend to score the highest number of goals, but he will have his minutes reduced at some point for sure. That's what Pep tends to do. While on the other hand, Maddison, Sterling, there's no Europe to fight for and to play in. So I'm almost certain that both Maddison and Sterling will get more minutes. So that equally, in my opinion, that automatically sort of puts them in a higher position priority wise than Foden. But I know that you're a Foden fanboy, so I'd like to hear your thoughts on this as well. Because
I so am. I'm delighted I've got him.
I want you to play devil's advocate because I don't think a lot of people will be buying him this week.
I am glad that in a way he didn't fly game week 3 because if he had, everyone would be on him game week 4. The Foden fixtures coming up are superb. He was reportedly not that well. He was ill. Therefore, I'm confident about him being in the best 11. The game week 3 against Newcastle, Foden was outstanding. Game week 2 against Newcastle. So I'm glad that he hasn't smashed it game week 3 in a way because I think now we're all shopping for Maddison or Sterling. If you don't own Foden, I think we can still chuck him in this bracket of look to buy this week. But you can only buy 1, maybe 2 midfielders this week. And the list is endless because, there's these 3 guys, but there's also Mbomo, as you mentioned. Like, I don't have him, and he's someone I said I'll almost certainly have Mbomo by game week 4. That's not going to happen now because I can't refuse some of the other guys. But I think Foden's a really nice pick. And, I'm confident I'm going to get points off him game week 4 and 5. But let's see. Champions League round the corner for Man City will affect things. We know it will. And the beauty of Spurs and Chelsea, and we said it a lot, like we cannot underestimate this. No European football. Spurs are at the Carabao Cup as well. Like they are going to have a full week on the training ground every week. It's amazing.
Exactly. And, it's the whole team is built around Maddison. I mean, I saw the game against Bournemouth. and everything seemed to be going through him. In fact, when you look at the statistics, he's actually first among all Spurs players for shots in the box, XG, XGI, big chances created. I mean, you name it, and he's coming out on top. He is playing like the talisman. He's the clear talisman in the team. I mean, at the moment, I'm struggling to sort of envisage Spurs scoring a goal without Maddison being involved. He really is that involved. As for Sterling, I think he has the highest goal threat.
Fair.
And I think he could be on penalties as well. Because
not.
a very, I mean, that's not necessarily a good thing for owners because he does have a,
he's terrible.
He has a pretty awful record from penalties. But given what he was saying, he was basically in his recent interview was saying that he wants to be Chelsea's top scorer. He set himself this goals target where he sees himself as being the main man this season. So that sort of makes me think that he might be on penalties, especially considering that Enzo has missed one now and that Sterling is informed. So it could happen. I'm not entirely sure it will, but if I had to guess, I think he's on penalties, and penalties are big for sure.
I still think Enzo's going to get another opportunity, but if Enzo misses the second one, then it's Sterling, Jackson, or James. But James will hopefully be back by the time that happens. So I'm not sure we'll see Sterling on pens, but I get it. The appeal is there, and he does see himself, like you're right. What he said post-match about like his goal target, wanting to get more than everyone else. It's good to hear if you're about to jump on Sterling. Like he's clearly in a good phase of his Chelsea career.
For sure, and that's what makes it so difficult because I'm struggling to see a reason not to pick Sterling or Maddison because both of them have so many pros going their way. The only thing regarding Foden is the expected minutes, and like even then you can argue, like you said, that he arguably has the highest ceiling, so that it might still be worth going for him because the fixtures are so good.
Yeah, I think we have. I don't know if this was lined up as question 2 or 3, so producer, forgive me. But we do have a graphic which is comparing just Maddison and Sterling, and now feels like the obvious time to show that. But rather than just game week 3, it's all season. So we can go to that and go, which one are we buying this game week? Because if we look at over the course of the season so far, and it is a very small sample size, Maddison's been consistent over the 3 games. And his XG and XA numbers are superb. His goal attempts actually even higher than Sterling's. Sterling was very quiet game week 1 against Liverpool. But I look at this and the points. Sterling's got 1 extra point. I look at this and therefore cannot see past Maddison's consistency. We also know he'll be a 90-minute man when fully fit. I know he got 78 at the weekend, but that's because he had been injured in the week. Sterling, if Chelsea are playing poorly, is still vulnerable to an early sub. I don't think Maddison necessarily will be. Does that help the argument for Maddison, big man?
I'm not really sure whether both will be vulnerable to an early sub. I think both will play the significant majority of minutes. It's very marginal. I mean, it seems like nitpicking, to be honest. But when you compare the numbers, a very pertinent thing that you mentioned is the fact that Maddison is more consistent in terms of his underlying data. So over the 3 games, Maddison has consistently put up good numbers, while Sterling's data, while it's good, it's skewed because of the Luton game. Because all 3 of his big chance involvements came against Luton. In the first 2 games, he had just 1 shot inside the box with no big chance involvement. So that's something which is worth pondering over. Is it just the Luton tax that is applying to Sterling, or is it just the fact that now he's going to get into form and he's finding his feet? Because it wasn't as if he wasn't getting into threatening areas in the first 2 games. He did register plenty of penalty area touches.
Yeah.
So it's sort of tough to gauge whether or not the goal threat rate would continue from him. But if I was to guess, when you look at the whole Chelsea team, who will score the goals? I mean, I think it's probably going to be Jackson, Sterling, maybe the wing backs, because none of the midfielders seem to me to carry that sort of goal threat. So if you are looking at the goal scorers, I think Chilwell, Jackson, Sterling seem to be the optimal picks.
Yeah, I'm with you there. And look, if you're more of an eye test manager and you're not that interested in the numbers, in terms of how they've been playing and like the flow of the teams, it's important to note, like, let's do Maddison first. The Spurs team was very much a Harry Kane team. Like the whole team was built for Kane to function, and it was Harry Kane's team. This Spurs team is increasingly looking like it's Madison's team. Everything goes through. And when you look at the average position maps, I'm not sure if we've got the average position map, but he's the most advanced man or the closest man to Richarlison, the 9. Son and Kulu will usually be slightly more advanced than Maddison, wide forwards. But in terms of central, him and Richarlison are pretty much on top of each other. Maddison isn't playing as a number 8. We thought Postecoglou was going to use him as kind of 2 number 8s, Sarr and Maddison. Sarr's the number 8. He's got his DM in Basuma. And then he's got a completely free-flowing, free-roll number 10. James Maddison can go where he wants on that football pitch. He's told to express himself, and it really suits him. Even at times at Leicester, Maddison was out on the right-hand side, and at times, like way too wide. Like he would drift infield, sure, but he didn't have this free-flowing nature. He wasn't allowed to because they were a team that often didn't have the ball. He had defensive responsibility. Well, this Postecoglou team has the ball a lot, and they're told to attack. And again, like, look at this average position map. Like, here we go. We can see it here. Richarlison there, the number 9. Ignore Son, number 7 there. He moved to centre forward when Richarlison went off. So he was actually wide left most of the game. And then the last half an hour skewed that. And then out wide on the right, we've got Kulu. But you can see there, Maddison, super advanced. Number 29 there, below the halfway line on the right. That's the other number 8, Sarr, who still gets into good shooting positions, by the way. But Maddison's so much more advanced. And the fixtures, Burnley, Sheffield United, 2 great fixtures. Like, we saw Burnley game week 1, and it was like, oh, how much can we read into them? Man City are clearly very good. But game week 3, Burnley were not great defensively. And then Sheffield United, we know that they've been vulnerable at the back. And Arsenal and Liverpool aren't the best fixtures, but I still fancy Spurs scoring in all of those. And then it's Luton. So do you like the fixtures, big man, or are you put off at all by those 2 red Arsenal and Liverpool games?
Firstly, I'd like to say that a very key statistic to mention for Maddison is the fact that he is great whenever he's on the pitch. He creates so many chances because of set pieces, because of his free role, like you mentioned. That there is the school of thought that he isn't as explosive, but I don't necessarily agree with it, because even with 1 attacking return, he can get find a way to get bonus points. So 1 assist and he can easily get 8-9 points. You look at the slide that's mentioned here. It says that he made over 30 passes with high pass completion. Again, that's ideal for bonus. Again, that's something that he has over 14, that his bonus potential is better. As far as the fixtures are concerned, in the short term, I prefer Sterling's fixtures, especially in game week 6 and 7, like you mentioned, when Maddison has Arsenal away and Liverpool at home. Sterling has Villa at home and Fulham away, which are obviously stronger fixtures on paper. Mm-hmm. An important factor to consider here is the wildcard strategy that you might have. A lot of managers are possibly looking to wildcard in game week 9 because that's one of the windows where the fixtures are turning for a lot of teams. And in that case, Sterling is ideal to get right now because his fixtures are great till game week 8, and then they change and you can simply then remove him on wildcard. While Maddison is more of a long-term pick because, like you said, after game week 7, he has Luton, Fulham, and Crystal Palace in the next 3 fixtures. So with Maddison, you're just going to set and forget him, and he's just going to continue to score points. It's that simple as that.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. If you're holding a player longer term, Maddison feels like a very good pick. If you're going for the short-term upside, maybe Sterling. But again, it has a lot to do with Jackson. Like, I'm not sure Chelsea are good enough yet to double up on the attack if you've already got Chilwell as well. I'm like, is that overkill? I know the fixtures are okay, but Forest aren't like, they're no mugs. If you don't have Jackson, I think I'd go Sterling. If I do have Jackson, which I do, I think I'd go Maddison. I think it could come down to that too. Got a super chat. Thank you for the question. Estupinan, hold or sell for Trippier? I mean, let's talk a little bit about defenders now, and then we'll go back to midfielders in general, away from Maddison and Sterling. So Estupinan, he hasn't been keeping clean sheets, but we've not needed him to. And yeah, he's just had 1 blank. But should we not keep him? Is he again not? I think he might become a very good defender for Estupinan. Rather than selling him, you could just bench because you only bought him for 5 million, right?
Exactly, and I think he could be very good value for the course of the season. Don't think he's a hard sell or a hard keep. I can see the arguments for keeping and selling him. The argument for keeping him is like you said, he's 5 million. His attacking statistics are absolutely incredible. In the first 3 weeks, he's actually top among all defenders for penalty area touches, big chances of moments, and XGI. Having said that, the the downside of having him is the fixtures are really difficult. And even in the easier fixtures that Brighton have had, Brighton have played Luton, Wolves, and um West Ham this season. Yet they're 14th for XG conceded, which isn't great, and they're conceding on average over 1.5 XG per game. So the clean sheets are questionable, and honestly, I think probably keep one clean sheet at best in the next six fixtures, which is likely to be the one against Bournemouth in game week 6. So I do see an argument for selling him. I mean, you can sell him for someone like a City defender this week, or Docky, even, or let's say even Trippier in game week 5. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and Trippier's lost a little bit of value, so he's gone down in price. We know how good he was last year. We know Newcastle defence. I know they lost to City and know they lost to Liverpool, but in those games, they weren't exactly up against it. Like Man City's XG against Newcastle in that game was super low. My worry with Trips is Champions League and Premier League, and I just don't quite know. We haven't seen him playing twice a week consistently for a few seasons. I'm guessing at Atletico he did play Champions League and La Liga, but again, that's going back a couple of years. And at his age, I'm not sure off the top of my head, the chat will know. How old is Trippier? I'm going to guess he's 34, 33. Let's have a look. I'm Googling it now. Kieran Trippier is...
I think 33.
Oh, he's 32. Damn.
32. Nice.
32. Yeah, he's... Okay, September. So 19th of September is his birthday. So yeah, he'll be 33 in a couple of weeks. So I don't know. I don't know if I'm a bit put off. I also question... If Dan Burn's going to play centre-back, or even if he doesn't play centre-back, will Lewis Hall be the starting left-back? And if so, Lewis Hall's a 4.5 defender, 4.5 million defender with attacking threat. I might still go to the Newcastle defence, but might save the money. I don't know yet. But money doesn't feel like it's an issue.
Yeah. The trouble there is that Trippier could play as the inverted left back, and there he might not have as much threat as he had last season in the right back role, because there's a chance that Livramento could play right back. But having said that, Botman is, I think there's a good chance that he's back after the international break, because there are reports that the injury isn't as bad as feared initially.
Yeah.
Newcastle's defensive data, by the way, this season has been very, very strong. They're 6th for actually conceded. In fact, despite having played City, Villa, and Liverpool in the first 3 fixtures.
Okay, yeah. So to answer the question on the super chat, we don't mind either way. Personally, I would hold. Big Man might be more tempted. In terms of Eze, there's so many midfielders at that price point getting points, but the performances are there for Eze. I think you can give him another couple of games. And remember, he will be on Palace penalties. But I completely get it. If you're squeaky bum time, you might have the money to get to a Maddison or a Foden, or you might want to move across to an Mbomo. I think you can probably keep off Matoma now with the fixtures. There we go. Is Trippier still 6.5 mark? I thought I saw he was 6.4 the other day on FPL stats. Maybe it was that he was forecast to move down. Let me check that, because maybe he's due a price drop. But yeah, I thought he had dropped. Trippier is 6.5, yeah, and he's not due a price drop. Don't know where I got that from. Apologies. Let's move on to more midfielder chat, generally speaking. I think we've got another final midfielder question here and a graphic to show you comparing the top 7 or 8 mids in the game so far. Let's have a look. I think it's coming in any second. We might be having a few tech issues. I will see if our producer can update us on that. But if we can show the midfielders to date, we've got a list pretty much which suggests how good Bruno's been, but Saka too. But then we look at some of the other Arsenal or Man United midfielders and go, okay, maybe Odegaard is a sell. Maybe Martinelli is a sell. Could Rashford even be a sell? So I really want to tailor this discussion now to what do we do with our Arsenal Man United mids. But I think, like me, big man, you're going to be very pro keeping the likes of Bruno and probably Rashford, almost certainly Saka, but maybe the other 2 Arsenal guys are more vulnerable, right? Odegaard and Martinelli perhaps haven't shown us enough.
Exactly. And Martinelli's numbers, to be fair, have been decent. Odegaard, I don't think he's going to be on penalties. His only big chance in moments in the first 3 games has come from the penalty. So his numbers have not been great. It's an XGI of 0.57 in the first 3 games, not an XGI. So yeah, I think I'd be very tempted to sell him if I had him. Martinelli is more of a question mark. I don't think he's someone you would necessarily sell, but simply because there seem to be more optimal options available. You might be tempted to do so. Um, as I said earlier in the show, I'm fully ready to be bitten hard by this transfer because I do see plenty of upside in the United fixture this week for Martinelli. But over the long run, because I have two free transfers in my own team as well, uh, and potentially nothing better to do, I might sell him because when you look at him over the long run, now that Jesus is back, Jesus and Nketiah are likely to share minutes up front, which means that Trossard is probably going to get some minutes of Martinelli in the left wing position,
Yeah.
uh, which sort of makes Martinelli a 70-minute asset during the Champions League days. He could even miss out in a fixture. I just think Trossard might eat into his minutes. So over the long run, I'm more concerned about that. And when you look at the expected minutes for the likes of Maddison and Sterling, they're much higher.
Yeah, I get that. Like, I remember picking Martinelli pre-season and people saying rotation risk. I'm like, no, he's not. Like, Martinelli is in that first choice 11, make no doubt about it. He certainly was game week 1. As the weeks go on, that might change. And when it does, that's when you react. But one thing that hasn't changed is, do we fancy Martinelli for 90 minutes? We never did, let's be honest, but we were willing to see him get 60, 70, 80 minutes against weaker opposition. But now when you look at the fixtures turning a little bit and you question, one, he's not been playing great, but two, there's the threat of the likes of Trossard, who a lot of the fans want to see a lot more of. And we've seen how experimental Arteta's been with the back line, and actually up front too, like not necessarily with Martinelli and Saka, the wide forwards, but the number 9's been changing every week. Like Nketiah did a lot to play himself in, and then he went and started Havertz game week 3, didn't he? And then Nketiah comes off the bench and does well. So you just don't know with Arteta. Like, it wouldn't surprise you if he went and played Trossard wide left, and out of nowhere Martinelli was dropped. Yet you don't see that with Saka. And of course with Odegaard, you have that assurance of minutes too. The penalties is interesting though, big man, because Odegaard still made the call that Saka took the penalty. Like, it was Odegaard gave Saka the ball. And he is, of course, the club captain. Now, I think every game it will be Odegaard has the ball in his hands and he goes, I'm taking it or I'm giving it to Saka. Now, I think he'll probably give it to Saka more often than not. Maybe it's game state. Maybe it's just how each player is feeling at the time. But Saka scoring was a very good thing for FPL managers, because if he had missed that penalty, I think there's a very good chance Odegaard just stays on them. But now you think it's probably 60-40 in favour of Saka. That's a complete punt. But it's an interesting one because it's Odegaard's call, I think.
I think Saka, I would rate Saka higher. I think there's an 80-20 chance of him taking the next penalty, because this thing of Odegaard sort of shielding the ball and then giving it to Saka right before he takes the penalty was happening last season as well. I remember owning Odegaard for a large period last season, and every single time there was a penalty, he used to take the ball and he used to be holding it right before the penalty, but at the end he used to give it to Saka. So I think it's going to be a common theme. I think that the penalties are Saka's to lose. So I'd be fairly comfortable selling Odegaard if I had the option.
Yeah, okay. I think I probably would too, but Odegaard's probably not the sort of player I go and buy. I've never been close to him this season, but completely get it if that's what you like. Who are you buying this week then? We got a few issues with graphics. YouTube has been really glitchy. So we'll go back to that midfielder comparison when we can, and we'll go back and see your team in just a sec. But in terms of your transfer thoughts this week, tell us what you're thinking. I'm very much pro Maddison and likely to sell Martinelli for Maddison this week.
I will sell Martinelli as well, reluctantly, but I will. But I'm not sure who I'm going to buy. So for me to sit here and rank the midfielders is very difficult. I think Sterling and Maddison are simply very difficult to separate. I do think they're better than Foden. If you don't have Mbemo, I think Mbemo should be in the conversation as well. I know you don't, Gianni, and you're again overlooking him this week. Yeah. I think he should be in the conversation because his points potential, in my opinion, is similar to Sterling or Maddison's, if not more, because again, 90-minute man, set pieces, penalties. He's going to play the last 20 minutes as a striker when Wissa gets up. Yeah, it's the same old story. He's a boring pick, but he will continue to get points.
He will, and it was his game week 3 fixture I wasn't massively keen on because I rate Crystal Palace defense. Even away from home, I was like, I don't see Mbemo scoring big this week. Like, sure, he could get a penalty or score a goal against Palace, but I never saw 2 returns. Fortunately, he blanked. It was it was game week 4. I was like, that's when I'm going to need Mbommo. And I think his fixtures are superb. I've still got Matoma. I don't think it's worth the 4-point hit. And actually, Matoma is a legit bench option for me this week because I'll be benching probably him, a Stupidan or Colwill. So I think I'll be swerving Mbommo yet again and just praying it's a blank. But I've got to prioritise Martinelli. And I think, sorry, not Martinelli, Maddison. I think many of you will probably be prioritising Maddison, who has already gone up in value. Good to see some new faces in the chat. Jack said it's his first time catching us live, regular watcher. He's got a dilemma with Martinelli, Nketiah, Watkins. Okay, needs to play 2, and Eddie's been so good. Liverpool without Van Dijk, though, for Watkins is interesting. And remember, Watkins away from home, playing on the counter-attack, without Van Dijk, it's a good fixture. I think I'd probably bench Nketiah out the fear. He either doesn't start, or if he does start, he probably only gets 60. He scored against United. He played well against United, though, last season, and he has played himself into the 11, I think. I think he starts, but probably doesn't. Do you think gets 60?
I think he will start, but yeah, maybe even less than 60. I'm not entirely convinced at all.
Yeah.
I definitely bench Nketiah because Watkins is in great form. As you mentioned, his away numbers actually are very, very good for a consistent period of time as well. And Villa are clicking as an attacking outfit under Unai Emery. So yeah, definitely play Watkins over.
Lella's asked about Kudus at West Ham's new signing. I think he's coming at 6.5 as a mid. Dean reckons, Dean, of course, regular co-presenter on a Monday and Friday with me, bit of a sort of European football and transfer expert. Dean thinks West Ham have bought him to probably end up playing him as a number 9, and he has played number 9 at times. Now, David Moyes, what sort of number 9s does he like? Does he like traditional number 9s? Not really. Antonio was a wide man. He wants runners. He wants work rate. And again, Kudus offers that. So I think he could become a really nice option. Now, West Ham didn't go and replace Skamaka and buy a 9. They've obviously got Antonio first choice, and Ings is likely to go off. He's linked, I think, with Everton. Sean Dyche has obviously worked with Ings before. I think Kudus could get a lot of game time as the number 9, but you definitely don't buy early. We need to see him starting regularly. And at the moment, the way Antonio's playing, he'll be eased into the team. But keep your eye on him because he's an exciting player. What's your take there? I mean, West Ham are an interesting team to monitor, aren't they?
I think he's a very, very good player. He's definitely one to monitor. And the good thing regarding him is that we will get time to monitor him because West Ham's fixtures after Luton are great. They're facing Liverpool and City in game week 5 and 6 respectively. So we're going to get plenty of time to analyze him. At 6.5, I think he's going to be in my team very, very soon.
Yeah. We'll continue answering your questions, guys, but we just want to go for that final slide where we've got loads of midfielders to compare. And I think this is a non-penalty XGI comparison for the season. Now, many of you in the chat will like XG numbers. We completely get it's not for everyone. But I always think this is a good way of determining how bright a player has looked in the last few weeks. So this is taking the first 3 weeks. Now, the list is, I think, the top. Fernandes to Bruno was like the top 2 for the top 6 players. And then I just listed Rashford, Martinelli and Odegaard on there for comparison, but they are not 7, 8 and 9 ranked. This is taken from my YouTube channel, by the way, guys. So if you want to know more off the back of watching this show today, stay with us until the hour mark. I've also done some chat on the Gianni Mattici YouTube show, and this is a screen grab from that show. So Bruno's smashing it. Maddison looks great. Saka looks great. We've talked about some of those other Arsenal midfielders and why we might want to sell them, Martinelli and Odegaard. But this makes you like Bruno a lot, doesn't it, big man? Like this is a non-penalty stat, and he's one of the few players on this list that has penalties too. So his numbers are actually even better.
Absolutely, and throughout the course of the league, he's the guy who's highest for a non-pen XGI, not just for midfielders, throughout the league for all outfielders. When you look at the underperformance numbers, he's actually underperformed his XGI more than anyone else in the league. So he's one I'm very, very happy to own, and I'm going to keep for a while. I just think he's going to keep on scoring points. He's that sort of player. And the fixtures for United after Arsenal are good as well. We've just spoken about how poor Brighton have been defensively. They're giving away plenty of chances. That game is at Old Trafford, and after that, United have a great run. They're playing Burnley, Crystal Palace, Brentford, Sheffield United in 4 of their fixtures after Brighton. So yeah, Bruno and Rashford both, in fact, are players I'm very happy to keep. Rashford on the left-hand side is a better asset than he is up front, and looks like he's going to play on the left now.
Yeah, we definitely like that. If you had to sell one of them this week, Who would you sell, Bruno or Rashford?
Oh, that's tough. I would probably sell Rashford reluctantly. But I
If
don't
your
like it.
only route to Maddison was Rashford, would you make that transfer?
No, no way,
I don't.
no chance. I don't think Rashford out is worth a transfer at all for anyone. In fact,
I don't know if I would. I think I might gamble. If I already had Bruno and my only way of getting Maddison was to sell a United player, I think I'd do it, but certainly not on a hit. But yeah, I don't know. I still think Man United haven't clicked going forward, but they are scoring goals and they are getting chances. Someone in the chat said, "Are these Bruno's numbers not slightly off because are they inflated?" Dom said, because of that header. Whilst that header was a big miss, that was probably only 0.5 xg. Like, it was a big chance, but you'd be surprised. Some of those gilt-edged chances where you're like, oh, it's harder to miss than score. The xg on those often aren't as high as you think.
yeah.
So
And
what do you
just
reckon? That's
to
probably a
just
0.5 header, right?
just to add to this, he's had 7 big chances almost in the first 3 fixtures. It wasn't. It was. It's not as if the XG was inflated by a one-off event. He's had plenty of other big chances almost as well. So he is just getting into great positions, creating big chances for his teammates, and getting those big opportunities himself. And having penalties just helps.
Yeah, I get that. Diaby isn't on this list, and he may have just popped in under or in and around Mbomo and Bowen. I think I actually did create this list on the Sunday morning before Villa had played, thinking none of these players will feature in the top 6. But I think, yeah, you're right. Diaby probably should be in and around it. And Diaby looks like a fantastic option, especially for so many of us that have sold Watkins to go Jackson or don't have Watkins because we got Jackson. The best route to that Villa attack, knowing Watkins isn't on pens and he's $1.5 million more than Diaby, I think might be Diaby. I think he'll be in all our teams in the not too distant. What do you reckon?
I think from game week 9, I'll be looking at Villa more seriously because their fixtures turn for the best at that point. And yeah, at 6.5, the only concern regarding him is the fact that he tends to get rotated around the 65 to 70-minute mark, but he does have plenty of goal threats. That's something I like.
Yeah, Zaniolo came on and looked sharp as well. But yeah, let's see what Aston Villa do. Remember, they do have European football, and I'm a little bit worried about Villa and Brighton. I'm keen to see in the group stages of their European leagues, like, what teams Emery and De Zerbi go with. Are they going, we're in European football, but this doesn't always happen, we're going to go full strength? Or if their opponents in the groups are nobody teams, which, with all due respect, you'd expect Brighton and Villa to be, I think we will still see, like the top clubs in England approach those leagues, Europa League, Europa Conference League, I think we'll see them going with very much second string teams. And the Premier League team, we won't have to worry too much about rotation because they wouldn't have played midweek. When it gets to the knockout, though, things change. But yeah, let's move on. Big man, I want to see your team. I want to answer questions in the chat. So let's have a look at what your team looks like ahead of Game Week 4. Oh, is our internet gone again? I mean, we're still live, but I think our producer's internet has been playing up, so we can't always show graphics. So here we go.
Oh, it's up on the screen. Yeah.
Have you got 2 free transfers, have you?
I have 2 free transfers, and I have 1.5 million in the bank. I haven't made a transfer yet, even though Sterling was rising, Maddison has risen. But I wanted to give myself more time to think about it because I'm still not sure about the moment. I wanted to assess the cup games as well to get more information.
Yep.
So yeah, my transfer is going to be a Maddison out for Sterling or Maddison. I still haven't made my mind up.
Martinelli out.
Let's say Martinelli out for sure. Yeah, that's going to be the transfer. I don't think anything else in the team warrants a transfer. I have enough funds to go to Trippier from Saliba in game week 5, and that's a move I will be doing that week. But for this week, I will be selling Martinelli for the reasons we've already mentioned in this show.
You're set on starting a
What would you do?
Well, I don't know. I mean,
in my position.
If you're set on going for a Newcastle defender for Saliba, then I wouldn't be making other defensive transfers. But there is an argument to suggest you could go Saliba out now to a Man City defender and start that Man City defender this week and bench a Stupinan. Like, you could go Saliba out to Guardiola, start him, or Diaz. But if you're set on a Newcastle defender move in a week or two, then I get that. You don't need to make that defensive move. I'm more bullish on Man City defense than you, I think.
The City defense is fine. I do think they'll be a reliable source of points, but I don't think they're a must-have because I think there are defenders like Udoki who could easily match them for cheaper, and they're more explosive than City defense without being at risk of rotation. So I'm not that fixated on the City defense because I believe Trippier has higher upside as well. So I just want the players with the maximum upside in my defense, which is why I think if I get Trippier, I can keep his Stupinan for game week 6 as well. So that's the initial plan, which is why I think it's best to move Martinelli out this week.
Yeah, I think the midfield transfer I'd 100% do, and then I'd go with that defensive move just because I like the City defense. But yeah, Martinelli for Maddison would be an easy one for me. I know many are torn, and there's no right and wrong answer here. Just my personal choice is Maddison over Sterling because I like him as a longer term hold. And you do already have Jackson, and you do already have Chilwell, and it was only Luton.
I tend to look at the selections in isolation. I don't mind tripling up if those three are the best picks. If Sterling is better than Maddison, then I don't care about the Chelsea triple up. It's fine.
Yeah, which is fair. You've shown you do that by the fact you went Bruno and Rashford. And I guess one of the reasons why I didn't go Bruno and Rashford was I didn't want to commit to double Man United attack at the start of the season. But as you say, you have a slightly different approach. You're like, no, Bruno in his own right is the pick. So that's fair enough. Yeah, I think look, to always carry that extra transfer would be lovely. You don't have to make 2 moves this week. You can make the one, and then you've constantly got those 2 free moves. The other question mark, I guess I would have if I was you, depending on when I was thinking of wildcard, would be, do you not just take the hit and transfer Pickford out now? Because I think Everton may have faced 12 shots on target and 6 have gone in.
He's been a disaster to own. I mean, let's face it. He's
I love your pause there. It was like a deep breath before you answered.
Yeah, I mean, I've been very pissed at picking him. But having said that, it's not as if the other keepers have done much. Exactly. Still no standout. I mean, none of the highly owned keepers are performing. In fact, none of the keepers are performing at the moment. There's very little between Pickford and the other keepers, especially because we're going to rotate him with Turner. So obviously, if I was wildcarding right now, there's no way I'd pick Pickford, but I don't see myself removing him because I think I think there are better transfers to make. It's a very low upside transfer, and this week Sheffield United away isn't the worst fixture, and Turner has Burnley at home next week. So I'm happy to give the keepers 2 weeks, and then I'll sort of reassess in game week 6. Because I've watched both of Everton's games this season, first game against Fulham as well, and this one against Wolves too, and they've dominated both games, and they should have scored 2 or 3 goals in each of those 2 games, and the game would have been done. But they keep on missing chances at the other end, and they always seem to give up this one big opportunity out of nowhere, and then they concede, and then their heads go. This has been the theme this season. Very constant.
Everton, I think, have clocked an XG this season of over 4. They've still not scored. So bad. Yeah. Good question in the chat. If you're a wildcarding, what would be your keepers be? And I genuinely couldn't tell you with any sort of certainty where I'd be heading. Like, I actually have recorded, and it's out on my YouTube channel at 4 p.m. today in 2 hours, a wildcard draft. And in that draft, I had so much difficulty looking at keepers. I ended up going with, you've got to have a 4 million option because there's 2 that are playing, right? So is it Turner or Areola? I went with Areola just because Palace could sign another keeper. They've been linked with Sarr, right? And if that was the case, could Turner lose his spot? So Areola is the backup who rotates quite nicely with Visario at Spurs. Like, he's 5 million, and I don't love Spurs defense, but they have kept 2 clean sheets. They are conceding low XG shots against them, which are fairly easy save points. But again, Emi Martinez, I was looking at. Onana, I still think will be a good option. I quite like the keepers in the 5 million bracket. I'm not sold on any of the 4.5s, and that includes Flecken, who I know has had some useful points. But yeah, it's a really tough one. I think we need more weeks to know which keepers. Would you know who you're going to on wildcard, big man, on those 2 keepers?
Keepers need... Obviously, with keepers, we need to get more information before we can come to making a decision, because with very little data on our hands, it's sort of jumping the gun a bit. If we sort of prematurely say that, player X is the best pick, it doesn't really make sense. I think if I was picking 2 keepers, one would definitely be Turner because of the value that he brings to the table. The second could be Flecken because Brentford tend to concede plenty of shots. They have a good fixture schedule, yet they don't concede. the big chances. So I think I like Flecken. If you don't want Flecken, I'd get Areola. I think Areola and Turner rotate
Yeah.
very well after game week 6 as well. Even this week, Areola is Luton at home. Sorry, Luton away, and then next week you can play Turner at home to Burnley. So even Areola and Turner is fine, and it gives you that saving. I mean,
If
there's no
only we
point
needed the
saving.
money. If only we needed the money, it'd be great to have 2 4 million starters from 2 okay teams defensively. Like we've never really had that. You know, we have obviously had it with the 2 Leicester guys last year, which was a strategy for some, myself included, Ward and Iverson. But to have 2 4 million keepers at West Ham and Forests is a nice treat.
It's sort of unheard of. I mean, you say that we don't need the funds. This is a very rare season. A lot of people who were wildcarding this week, I'm actually very curious to see the wildcard draft you've come up with, because a lot of people are going with 8 playable attackers in the side now.
Yeah. I actually didn't, because I don't like having that headache, and I think Cameron Archer's perfectly fine as the 8th attacker. But it was looking at my actual team, which is similar to yours, big man. From my 11, I think in the wildcard draft, I think only 3 of the spots are different, and one of those 3 is Maddison, who I'm buying this week anyway. So actually, only 2 of my 11 after this week would be the wildcard 11. Now, sure, my bench would be different, but yeah, very little.
It's not worth wildcarding for that. Exactly. Just two positions in the 11 is nothing.
Couple of super chats in. Yusuf Awaniyi has been amazing. 9 goals and 7. Noticed that Awaniyi didn't start game week 1. Like obviously with Brennan Johnson probably going, and the way he's scoring goals now, he's set and he's in that Forest team. But at game week 1, he wasn't absolutely nailed. He should be, and he will be now, and his record's great. I still can't see myself going there, because I would see him as the 8th attacker. And
exactly.
I mean, 8th attacker is 4.5 million.
He'd be more of an option, let's say, if in the yesteryears when we needed more funds going forward, we needed that cheap option from a newly promoted side or lesser team to sort of get the funds for other transfers. But we don't really have that headache. So if you can get someone like a Jackson for 7 million with those fixtures, it becomes very difficult to go for Avanier. But I am sure he will be an option some point, especially with the doubles later.
Yeah. Mark has got the headache, which many managers that go with 8 attacking players will have every week. I'm guessing, Mark, you've got 3 forwards that are undroppable. I don't know. You've got Watkins, Jackson, and Haaland. So you're having to bench one of your mids. I don't know here. I would probably bench Rashford with a heavy heart out of those 5. Bowen, Saka, Rashford, Maddison, Foden. Like, pick one there, big man.
I think I agree with you. I'd bench Rashford as well. Maddison and Foden with their higher ceilings this week, I don't think it makes sense benching them. Saka's on penalties, Bowen against Luton. So yeah, Rashford for me.
Part of me would be like, go Bowen, because the West Ham attack can underwhelm, and Luton could be really good at home. We haven't seen Luton at home yet, but what we have seen Luton, we've seen them play football twice, and they concede a ton of chances. So I think you've got to play Bowen. But that could change after this week when we see how good Luton are or aren't at home. But that will be a cauldron there at Kenilworth Road. Like I'm excited to see how Luton perform in home versus away. I think it'll be the biggest difference of all teams this season, potentially. A bit like Forest last year. Jasada says, hi from Bangkok. Awesome to see you guys watching from all over the world. In fact, if you fancy putting the country you're watching in the chat, it'd be awesome for me and Big Man to see, because I reckon we've got a good spread today. Shall I start Henry or Gusto? I mean, Gusto, this could be his last Chelsea start for a while. Reece James is going to be back soon. You've got to start Gusto, haven't you?
Yeah, I'd start Gusto as well. I just think there's a higher ceiling there.
We've got USA, Netherlands, Kev Mack in England, FPL, Canada Gaz in Canada, New Zealand, Norway, India, USA. Love that. South Africa, Ireland, a very, very good spread. We've got George in Australia. Hello, George. Lithuania represented. Egypt, Trinidad and Tobago, Kenya. That's pretty cool.
Amazing.
That is pretty cool.
Amazing to see such diversity.
Yeah, it really is. In so many different time zones, like East and West as well. Cyprus and Kuwait. Will Gabriel Jesus be nailed after the international break? Absolutely. There will be no rotation. When Jesus is fit, Jesus starts. I think we can answer that one fairly quickly.
Yeah, I think it's going to be first choice, but the early subs could happen with Champions League, especially because he's coming back from injury, so that could happen.
Yeah. No way. Vincent's watching the Vatican City. There can't be too many people that watch us from the Vatican. That's pretty cool. And Bomo or Sterling? Oh, I love that Nuisance has added he has Jackson because I think that matters. But big man, you don't think as much. You love Bomo. Like, would you?
Yeah,
Would you
I'd
go
pick
Bomo?
Mbomo.
Would you?
Yeah, I'd pick Mbomo for sure. Penalties, 90 minutes. I'm boring, and I'd pick Mbomo for sure.
Yeah, I love the fact we're so different in our choices because I still don't have Mbommo and I've not even considered because I don't have Maddison. I've not even considered him. But if you were me this week shopping between Maddison or Mbommo, where would you go?
I'd pick Mbomo.
Would you?
I
I've
think
not
he's
even considered it.
yeah, I would pick him. I do think there's a lot of potential there for points to come till game week 9.
Yeah. Would you roll transfer and start Bulldog? No, I don't. I mean, if Bulldog doesn't go, there's still a good chance he'll be benched. Like, especially because him Bogle
Justin
come off the
Bogle
bench
scored.
and score. Yeah.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah. Get rid of Bogle. Don't start Bulldog. Awani or Richarlison? Oh, I mean, Richarlison did score last night, which is a start. And he'll start again. But if he keeps blanking the Premier League, at some point we're going to see Sonny number 9 and we're going to see Perisic come into that 11, I think.
You're right, but I'd still play Richarlison this week. I'd give him that game.
Yeah, I would.
Simply because of the fixture. Even 60 minutes of Richarlison could be better than 90 minutes of Aveni against Chelsea.
Yeah. Thank you for the super chat from M. So, love that. Thank you for supporting the channel. And guys, thank you for hitting that like button and subscribing. If you like these streams, me and Big Man are live every Wednesday. We've got over 350 of you watching, but only 69 of you have hit that like button. Come on. We can get that up to 100 and we might even get to 6,000 subs today. That would be awesome as well. Rashford to Sterling. Again, we answered that earlier, Vincent. We don't love that move. We don't love the idea of selling Rashford this week.
Yeah, I love Gabriel Udogie though. I think Udogie is a really
nice.
good option. He's had 2 big chance moments in the first 3 games, and he's in the top 5 defenders who touch in the final third. Again, at 4.5 million, he will allow you plenty of savings going forward, which might be used for future transfers like Trippier. And yeah, the fixtures are good, so really good pick.
I really like Udogie, but he came off last week with an injury, and no one's really speaking about it. Like, he was smiling.
No, there was this quote after the press conference in which Postecoglou said that he's fine.
Just look out for those training ground photos before you buy him. He's not flagged, but I would want to see training photos before I buy him off the back of seeing him come off because it was an off the ball related incident, and they always worry me those when a player pulls off the ball. But
it was
2 free transfers. Would you move Anana to Edison or Flecken? I still don't think Edison's a great buy. You could say the same about Guardiola, but who I've gone and bought. But the ceiling is 6 points for Edison, and Guardiola's ceiling is 7 or 8. I don't like Edison as a keeper. We will never get bonus, and you will never get save points. Rarely.
Yeah, I mean, I won't use a transfer to sell Onana because it's one rough fixture this week, but next week, I assume if you have Turner, you can play Turner next week, and then the fixtures are fine after game week 6. And like we've said before, I think there are better transfers to make than to sell goalkeepers this week.
I think I agree with that. Like, Onana could go and... Sure, we don't think he'll keep a clean sheet, but he's going to be worked. He could get save points. Yeah. You can't have 11 good players with great fixtures every week, so carrying your keeper through this spell when loads of your other players have got brilliant fixtures is fine. You shouldn't get too...
concerned.
Yeah, like I've seen people take 4-point hits and you really don't need to hit, guys, this season if your squad's in a good place. You don't have 11 optimal players every week. That's FPL. Sean Varane is maybe an issue for the United defence. And again, is that a reason to consider selling an Arno? I don't think it is. You've got to remember, these squads are useful. Players like Lindelof will come in and put a really good shift in. Dallo at left back isn't amazing, but he can do a job. He can do a job. I think you're fine. What about Foden or Alvarez? Are we still shopping there, big man? Should we be?
Given the ceiling, I think both of them are likely to start. And I mean, as long as you accept the risks, it's fine. I think in the short term, both should play.
Yeah. I think I'm agree on that as well. Signings are going to be interesting for Man City. Will they go and get another? We know they're in for Mateus Nunes. Obviously, Doku's over the line, but a more central player that could affect Foden and Alvarez minutes moving forward will be interesting. The deadline is Friday, remember, both for FPL and the transfer window, and we'll be streaming on Friday with Dean, so look out for that. Sell Rashford or Martinelli for Maddison? This will be our last question from Mr. Joram. Guys, we're so close to 100 likes. Let's see if we can get there. Would we be selling Rashford for, was that Matoma? Was it sell Rashford for Matoma? No.
I read it as well. I thought it was Matoma as well, yeah.
Don't do it.
From Maddison.
Oh,
I
okay.
Still won't do it. I would sell Martinelli, yeah. If you're selling one, I'd sell Martinelli from Maddison, but I won't sell Rashford, no.
100% agree with that. On that note, we will be back next Wednesday. Big man, I'm loving streaming with you on these shifts.
Cheers, Randy. It's been a pleasure. This is really nice. I see we're building a nice rapport.
Yeah, we are. And we're also building a nice audience of new faces who I'm recognizing from last Wednesday. So good to see Dasasa and Lennon and Ulrich and Kieran and Omar, as well as our regulars, our chasers like CH and Tiffany. So, guys, thank you for joining us. We'll be back on Friday. Probably going to be an early stream on Friday, maybe around lunchtime. So keep your eyes peeled for that. Obviously, there's a deadline. And look, we can't do a deadline stream on Friday because little old Chasing Green Arrows can't go up against all the big YouTubers on these Friday deadline streams. So what we're deciding to do on Friday when there's a deadline is we'll stream slightly earlier, maybe around lunchtime, which will be great for press conference updates and transfer news from Dean. So stay tuned for that one. But for now, me and Big Man will be back next Wednesday together. He's been Big Man, I've been Janny, and we've all been chasing green arrows. See you later.